I still remember the day my brother told me about that ad in the newspaper. Help wanted, farmhand needed, room and board included. It was perfect timing. He was between jobs back then, struggling after a bad breakup, just feeling lost. The idea of getting away from the city, of finding some peace and quiet in a simple country life, it sounded like exactly what he needed. He told me the woman on the phone was kind, maybe a little eccentric, but friendly. She owned a small farm just outside a place called Black Hollow, a little patch of land tucked away between endless miles of forest and fog. He packed his bags and left that week. I can still picture him waving goodbye from the porch, a hopeful smile on his face. I never imagined it would be the last time I'd ever see him. He called me after a few days, and his voice sounded lighter. He said it wasn't bad at all. The old lady, her name was Mrs. Wren, kept to herself mostly. He said she cooked incredible meals, kept the house spotless, and always had this faint, pleasant smell of lilac about her. But then he mentioned something odd, something about her eyes. He said that they didn't always seem to match her mood. Sometimes when she smiled, the warmth never quite reached them. He laughed it off, though. Figured she was just a lonely old woman. After about a month, his calls started to change. They got shorter. His voice sounded duller. He said she'd started treating him like a child, snapping at him for tracking a little mud inside, scolding him if he didn't clean his plate, even making him go to bed early because, as she put it, farm work starts at dawn. At first, he thought it was just a funny quirk, this old lady being overly motherly. But then it got stranger. He told me she'd started talking to people who weren't there. He'd walk past her room at night and hear her whispering, sometimes even arguing with someone. He'd hear names he didn't recognize. One time, he said he caught her out in the garden at midnight, murmuring to the soil, her hands deep in the dirt, like she was feeding it secrets. A few days later, I got another call. This time, he was audibly shaken. He said he'd found men's clothes in her closet, coats, shoes, jewelry, even car keys, things belonging to people she claimed she'd never met. She had told him she'd never been married, never had any children, but she had all this stuff. Then he told me about the basement. He'd found a small chest, and inside it was filled with driver's licenses. All men, all from different towns, different states. That's when she caught him. He said she stormed down the basement stairs like a crack of thunder, her eyes wild, her voice trembling. She demanded to know what he was doing. He tried to play it cool, said he was just curious. But she got right in his face and told him, "Mind your business, boy, or you'll regret it." He told me that night she locked herself in her room. He could hear her through the door, crying, yelling, arguing with that same invisible person. And then, he said he heard her whisper, clear as day, a single chilling phrase, "Yes, it's time. I will." That was the last call I ever got from him. The next morning, he wrote one final entry in his journal. I only know what it said because the sheriff read it to me after the investigation was closed. He wrote that he woke up to the smell of a huge breakfast, bacon, eggs, biscuits, all his favorites. Mrs. Wren was at the stove, humming a song he didn't recognize. When she turned around, she was smiling. It was a sweet, calm smile, like nothing had ever happened. She apologized for her behavior the day before, said she was ashamed of herself, and insisted that he eat up. He wrote that he didn't trust her, not one bit, but the food smelled so good he couldn't resist. He sat down, and she placed a huge steaming plate in front of him. It looked perfect. He asked her why she wasn't eating, and she just smiled and said she wasn't hungry. "Just eat, dear," she told him. "You'll feel right as rain soon enough." He took a bite. The food tasted different. Still good, but there was this strange aftertaste he couldn't place, something bitter and metallic. That's when she smiled again. But this time it was a wide, eerie smile that didn't belong on her face. His vision started to blur, and his arms felt like they were made of lead. He managed to look up one last time, and she was standing there, holding a small brown bottle. Poison. She leaned in and whispered, "Now you can join the others. He commands it." I never heard from my brother again. They never found his body. A year later, when Mrs. Wren passed away, the police finally searched the property thoroughly. In the cellar, hidden beneath old floorboards, they found boxes. They were filled with clothes, wallets, watches, and photographs, all belonging to dozens of missing men from the last 30 years. My brother's things were in there, including his journal. The papers called her the widow of Black Hollow Farm, but no one ever figured out who he was, the one she said commanded her to do it. Sometimes I wonder if that land remembers him. If the soil he worked and the meals he ate still hold some trace of his spirit. I try to tell myself he's at peace now. But every now and then, when the wind blows through the trees just right, it almost sounds like his voice, calling for help. From somewhere deep in the ground. Thank you for listening to this story. If you found it as haunting as I did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more mysteries like this one. Stay safe out there.